25 years. As a kid, I grew up in Pasadena. My parents took me out to Santa Anita Racetrack, and I grew up in the infield, and they'd leave me to collect tickets and play football and goof around. So by the time I was 10 or 12, I was kind of hooked. I love the idea of these horses carrying these jockeys at 40 miles an hour. I love the competition. I like the pomp and the circumstances. I like everything about racing. So when I saw this race in 2009, I was just at home on my couch watching the 2009 Derby, which you saw a good piece of here. And I've seen tens of thousands of races, I mean, between 25 years of racing. And I thought this was honestly the most visually stunning race I'd ever seen. A little horse getting slammed 30 lengths behind and to beat him by 7 lengths. And at 50-1, I said, I need to explore it just a little bit further. And Faith and I spent months getting to know these cowboys, but when we came back from Roswell, what you see is the real thing. We took the mirrors and shined them on these boys, and they're just good old cowboys, and I love the fish out of water stories, and thought I've been looking for a couple decades for a story like this, and it pretty much wrote itself. So
now I'll ask this of you, Faith. To get these guys to agree to do the story, do you guys just call them and, hey, you know, we'd like to make a picture about you guys? How did that work?
That is exactly how it started, at least. Jim did. He called them up and said, we would like to tell your story. So they wanted to meet us. And we put together a script on spec so that they had a sense of what kind of story we wanted to tell, so that they had a sense of us as well. So we got on a plane and we went down to Roswell, and they were having a huge party. Mark was having one of his parties, and it was pretty wild. We were heading over to watch Bird Race, and that was over in Kentucky. So we were going to fly with them then to Kentucky. So we spent the weekend with these guys, and on the plane, this was Mark's plane, by the way. You saw Mark's plane in the movie. We were handed a bottle of tequila. And we drank out of that bottle of tequila, no glasses, and you share. And as soon as we did that, I looked at Jim and I thought, oh gosh, here we go. And it was like, okay, just take a chug and hand it off and try not to gag. And that was it. They loved us. We were in. That was it. They said if they could do that with us, they're all right.
How were they in regards to making the picture? Did they have a lot of input in it? Did they just let you guys do your thing? How was it working with the family?
Well, we asked a lot of questions, obviously. The great thing is everybody was forthcoming. It was we spent a lot of time in Roswell, and I love racing. So whether it was early morning and we're in the stalls and they're mucking away, or we're at the races, or they invited into their home, so we got to know these guys very well. So. Yeah, that piece of it, they thoroughly enjoyed. They were on set a good bit, Chip more than anybody. I thought he might be reticent and whatever. The trainer was there because he really wanted to see how, he'd never really been around the movies, these guys hadn't. So how are they being portrayed? How are the races and the authenticity and all that? So it was great to have them at my beck and call, because I could call them any given day, and we're so familiar with them that I could ask them any questions. So hopefully there's a bit of the authenticity here, because we shot at their homes. They even, gave us the shirts off their backs to wear in the picture, per se. We shot, at all the racetracks that really existed. So they went above and beyond the Call of Duty, and I think it helped the picture a lot.
You mentioned the racetracks. Did you guys actually shoot any of this at Churchill, or is that Hollywood magic?
Oh, no. No, we didn't have a budget for Hollywood magic. That's the real deal. As a matter of fact, Churchill Downs gave us access to everything for about 2 weeks, which you don't get. Secretariat, how many days did they get? 3 days, yeah. And a lot of these, they don't allow you. And one of the hardest things that we were facing was that the scene with the rain on the track, because it rained like crazy the night before. And we aren't allowed to bring any of our equipment on that track. That's the real track. And we needed it to be raining. And by gosh, if the gods didn't give us a little help there too, because it rained. And we all went running outside. We had one of our assistant directors on her iPhone watching the radar Doppler and saying, oh my gosh, there's a storm coming. And we looked at each other. It had been sunny every day. And we thought, we are in so much trouble, because you can't put rain towers out. You can't fake it at all, because it'll wreck one section of the track. And they were using it every day. So by gosh, if that rainstorm didn't come just in time, and out we went, run out, we do the scene, and then it was beautiful again, until we had to have Bird running with Calvin, because he's off the screen. You don't see him on any of this footage that we had to use. because he's so far back, he's not even on television during the race. So we had to actually put him on our bird and run him on that track. And it needed to be overcast, and it had been sunny all day again, and by gosh, when we're ready to shoot, here come the clouds. So we just thought, wow, this is pretty special. We're very fortunate that, you know, the gods were looking out for us.
And Bird we put in the very same stall and the same barn and everything. I said, as much as I can do for myself producing, I'll help myself directing. If we put everybody in the same clothes, in the same location, in the same, you know, conditions, it helps everything. So that was great.
Now, as a director, it's hard enough to work with actors and to choreograph them in scenes. Horses, how does that work?
Yeah, well, the great news is I actually wouldn't have done this. I mean, I've produced a number of Westerns, be it Wyatt Earp and Dances and The Postman, and I've worked with a lot of horses. So the numbers weren't scary, but the detail of this was, you know, whether it's training this particular horse, his name is Sunday Rest, and we used just one horse, by the way. Typically, you use 8 or 9 horses in Secretariat and Seabiscuit to do everything they've got to do. And I can tell the difference between all 8 horses, but that being said, this is one horse we found up in Calgary, Canada, and we must have looked at 400 head of horses until he just matched physically and had the character we're looking for and the same size and whatnot. And I must tell you that you often hear about children and animals slowing you up. This horse sped me up. This horse was so ready to go to work every morning. I'm not kidding you. And the trainer, his name is Bill Lawrence. He's a real saint, lives up in Washington. Every morning at 5:30, I said, Bill, how we doing? He said, Bird's ready. I mean, our bird's set to go. So the actors knew they had to catch up with the horse. I'm not kidding you. This horse is saddled, ready to go. Let's play. Let's grab that donut. Let's go play with this stuff. So I'm not kidding you. I lost no time with this horse, and I wouldn't have attempted this if I hadn't. I mean, I ride. I've been around this for a lot of years. So for me, the most magical scenes are incorporating the real footage, of which I have some real footage obviously here, and then shooting footage that I hopefully relatively seamlessly cut with what you saw. And so to recreate the paddock scene or the jockey's room or Calvin in the gate or Calvin in the race, that was the most fun, was recreating that. So in truth, I had the best trainers. I've worked with these guys for now nearly 30 years. So we just got a call from Quentin Tarantino, who wants to use our horse as his lead horse in his new movie, because this horse already starring in 2 films. Now he's got his 3rd.
So maybe a horse agent now?
The actors might be in trouble, but this horse has got a career. So if I've done anything, I've created a monster in this guy.
Yeah, he has his own bio, and by the way, just so you know, he cannot wear a hat around this guy anymore. Once you teach him to do certain things, that's a bad habit he's got, and Bill was very cute. He says, you know, he's really naughty now. I said, yeah, well, but he's his. He keeps him, and he's up there with him in Washington when he's not working.
Why the decision to go with Calvin? Because that's the actual jockey. Everybody else is actors.
Yeah.
Why'd you use the real guy?
Well, if you watched what you just saw is Calvin Burrell,
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody like that out there. Nobody can be Calvin but Calvin. And Jim was very fortunate. He went down to Kentucky to talk to Calvin and his wife. Because, you know, he's a regular jockey. He's out there riding all the time. And to try to get him away from his mounts for the amount of time we needed is not an easy task. So Jim brought him the script, and he says, what's this for? And he says, well, you know, this is where your lines are. And he says, I don't read, I ride.
Calvin has a 3rd grade education. I mean, he wasn't kidding. He said, I don't know, we're gonna have to talk about this. So on set, I would literally have to read his line to him, and maybe 100 times, until he finally got it, what we were up to, and a complete naturalist as he did it. But the other thing is, since I'm cutting the real footage with Calvin on the horse, to take another jockey and to you know, try and make him look just like Calvin, I didn't want to do it. So it's seamless, and he'd give himself, we'd give him a leg up on the day, and he tacks his own horse up. He did everything. He came prepared. That's his real seat he sits in. That's his little obituary of his parents that he kisses, that ritual every time before the race. So I said, Calvin, you keep bringing it. And you've got one more funny thing about Calvin, just about something.
It was cute. We were sitting in seats like this, you know, in front of the little TV monitors that we watch when we roll a scene. And Calvin's waiting for the next scene to get started, so he's sitting next to me, and I'm just blown away by what I've been watching him do. And I turned to him and I said, Calvin, how are you doing this? I mean, you look so natural. This is crazy. How are you doing this? And he just looks at me with that great big smile, and he says, you're in my house now. And it was true. I mean, we were in the jockey's room, you know, that's his house. That's where he lives. So he was just being him. He was doing everything that he normally does. He showed us where he puts his tack. He helped us get that room exactly the way it should be for when the derby was going to roll. And we our hats are off to this man. I mean, he was just so genuinely kind. And we've had the great fortune of having him join us on our promotional tour that we did. Because I don't know if anybody knows about that, but what we did is we opened it in New Mexico, the movie, and we had our cast on a bus, on a 45-foot long bus. And we rode from New Mexico to Kentucky just like they did. And we mimicked the tour the ride that Chip took with our tour. And we stopped all along the way, and we were opening the movie as we were going. And of course, Calvin's riding, so he's meeting us at different tracks across the country. He's up there in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and it was just, and Bird was with us, the real Bird, the real Mark, the real Doc, Serena, his daughter. I mean, a bunch of them came along. And after a while, we started seeing the same fans. And we realized, I saw this lady in Louisiana, and the next thing I know, she's in Nashville. I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here. And she said, well, yeah, well, I'm going to see you in Kentucky, too. I'm going the whole way. I said, you really? And this gal comes over and puts her arm around this lady, and she's not this was not a young gal. And I thought, my gosh, she's traveling this country by herself, and this woman puts her arm around her, and she said, yeah, this is my adopted mom. And I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness. And they says, yeah, we just met. And I'm going to Kentucky, too. So we had all these crazy, wild fans coming with us, meeting us at all these locations. And so it turned into a really, really special experience.
Any of them here tonight still following
I'm wondering,
you?
are you out there anywhere?
I'm afraid there might be.
We have this group, they're called the Caniacs. They're the Christian Kane fans, and they're amazing, and they've been with us all along. So if you haven't become a Caniac yet, there's still time.
I know you guys always have a lot of great questions, and I've got one more, and then I'll head out to you guys. So if you got one, just raise your hand here in a second. But as filmmakers, I'm always curious, anything that you guys shot that then got left out that maybe you personally are a little disappointed or maybe wish it would have been in, anything at all?
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Well, it's a great question, but I'll tell you, there's 202 scenes, and there's a piece of all 202 scenes in here. Never in my life would I have dreamt that, because I've produced a lot of films and I see directors throw away material all the time. So maybe it's a fault of mine as a producer becoming that director, saying I want everything in there. But there's a touch of every single scene in here. So we wrote it very tightly. We're on a very strict budget. I mean, we made this for nothing. 4 of us put up some money to make the film. Obviously this is not funded by Hollywood, so they didn't want the story, and it was incumbent upon us. I felt passionate enough and Faith to make it, so we put our money together and put it out there. So I was pretty damn sure if I was going to spend the time to shoot it and put it all together, that it was going to make the film. So you might miss something, but I'll tell you, I don't.
You'll see some stuff on the DVD when that eventually gets out there. So there's just a little bit, not too much, but some of it's fun.
You guys have some questions? We'll start right up here up front.
Hi. I saw, the whole reason I know about your movie is because I saw the great article in the Wall Street Journal. And I had seen the race, loved Calvin Burrell, and so I got really excited when I read this article, and then even more excited when I heard you were going to be here and the movie is going to be here. Was Baffert not amenable to being in the movie, or was he not available?
Well, just a real quickie on Bob. So Bob, obviously, top of his game, is a phenomenal horse trainer. So he couldn't take 10 seconds out of his schedule. He's got 200 horses under his, so he has to deal with that. And Bob, obviously, made the bad guy. I've known Bob for 25 years. So Bob historically was their competitor all the way through. I mean, he truly was. I mean, he had midshipmen that beat him at the Breeders' Cup. He had Pioneer of the Nile in the Derby. So that is the guy to beat. So as you're writing a story, you sort of feel like, okay, you make the bad guy is going to be Bob. And Bob can be magnanimous and a terrific guy, and Bob can also be a wee bit arrogant. And some of these lines, this young woman was a journalist for AP for a long time, came right out of Bob's mouth, and sometimes they were a lot worse. And I'm telling you, this could be X-rated.
No.
I think so. So I love Bob and all that, but I'll defend what we've done. And I think, the worst he is, he's arrogant. And there's many a time I'll walk down the track and say, "Good morning, Bob," and he just walks right on by me. So
and that was before the movie, okay? Now we don't care. But there was actually, he's telling the truth. We did actually go up to him before we did this movie, and we said, "Bob, we're going to make this film, and you're in it." And he started telling us a story about the night before and how, are you worried about, they've got Calvin riding for him, And these are literally it's out of his mouth, and I'm not worried about them, but he called them hayseeds. And yeah, those hayseeds, I'm not worried about those hayseeds. And so we had that in the script, and Jim got concerned because, this is going on and on and on. And he said, maybe we're going a little too far here. We don't make him sound too bad. So make the movie, it's out there. Bob gets interviewed on the radio right before Jim actually was getting interviewed on the radio, and I'm listening in. And I hear Bob, and they're asking him about it. Well, and this guy was thinking he would be so offended. He says, first of all, I wouldn't have called them yahoos. I would have called them hayseeds. And I said, oh gosh, there you go. And then he says, and besides, nobody's going to see this movie anyway.
So I immediately booked the film right next to Bob's house. So we had a little running thing. I'm sure Bob's got some barbs for me. He's a brilliant, brilliant trainer, and I don't think Bob's worried about the film. So that was that. Yeah.
I just want to say that this is probably one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, can you come with me?
Yeah, really. We don't have the tour bus, but we have a car outside. You can come with us.
I've got room in my car. You can go to the next screening if there is one. But thank you very much. It's wonderful. Thank you.
When you were filming the scenes where Calvin was getting all the bad news and the pitchfork and all that, how many takes do you recall did it take to get all those done?
Okay, Calvin this was really crazy because we were trying to illustrate that everything bad kept happening to this poor guy. And he actually lost 5 mounts. Okay, so there's more than what he actually lost. In this movie. He lost another one. And so anyhow, we did all these crazy things with him, and we're interviewing him after we finished filming, and I said, Calvin, we did an awful lot of crazy things with you. How did that feel for you? You were being a real sport. And he just looks at me deadpan and says, well, when they see it, they're going to know that's me. And it was the weirdest response, and I said, what do you mean? And he says, well, I'm accident prone. I said, you're accident prone? And he says, well, yeah. He says, well, we had company coming over, and there was this, those inflatable mattresses, we were blowing something up for our company. And he said, well, I was using a leaf blower, and it exploded. And the plug got stuck in my eye, and I said to Lisa, should I pull it out? And Lisa's sitting there, and I'm looking at her saying, are you kidding me? And she shook her head, she says, no, we went to the emergency room. I said, so what we did to you is tame. And he said, oh yeah. And I said, so you'd step on a rake sometimes? He goes, oh yeah, I've done that a lot. So the guy actually is accident prone, and so this was our way of illustrating it, and we're very fortunate that, who gets to whack Cal Burrell in the face with a rake? But he did it one time.
But to answer that question, which is great, is that here I have a Hall of Fame. He was just in the Hall of Fame of racing, and took off of mounts for a week to shoot with us. And the first thing we do is put him through the soap. And I didn't quite get it right the first time. It wasn't quite the punch I wanted. So Calvin's such a trooper, and I don't know him that well. I said, Calvin, we gotta do this again. Well, all right. So he drives around again. 4 times I put Calvin Burrell through the soap. Blast his face. Then the next hour we run across the street where I have the microwave blowing up. Well, that's nasty. I use no computer graphics. I'm a dinosaur. I love setting these things up and having them fly. This macaroni just slaps him across the face, and he blew that one. He knew it was coming and all that stuff.
And it wasn't cheesy enough, so we had to add cheese.
Yeah, so we had to do it again, and Calvin is just laughing his head off. So we did 2 takes on that. That worked out pretty well. I swear to God, he'd still be slapping himself in the head with that rake because he thought it was so funny. He'd come up and he goes, "This is so cool!" Boom! Boom! So Calvin Burrell, I had to stop with him and tell Calvin we got that off to go. Yeah.
But he actually, just so you know, he was also working with a broken hand with us. We didn't know that. Somebody had told us later that his hand was swollen, and it was because it was broken. They hurt themselves so much when they race. They do all sorts of things. So, this was nothing to him, and we're worrying about it. Like, oh my gosh, he's getting hit with macaroni in the face. He gets hit with a horse in the face. So, yeah.
As far as the financing, what do you consider almost nothing? When you said this costs almost nothing.
Well, as I say, almost nothing. You're right. It's all relative. So most of the films I've done range from 20 to 100 million I've spent. We made this for 7. So it's still, for an independent movie, it's a nicely funded, $7 million is nothing to, it's money. It's a good chunk of change. But, when you've spent 40 million to make Secretariat, for instance, or 90, more than 90 to make Seabiscuit. This is it's a fraction of that. So it's 7, so it's real money, but it's, thank God I didn't spend 40,
I wanted to thank you for the movie and tell you how much I enjoyed it. My nephew's father-in-law is Leonard Block,
Oh my gosh.
and his wife is Serena, his daughter. So
Oh my gosh,
we've
small
known
world.
about this coming for quite a while and have been really excited to see it. And I saw it in the paper Friday, and so I called Serena. And if you've met Serena, you know she's a little over the top.
We love
enthusiastic.
Serena.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, she's in Bellevue, Washington tonight with her
Correct.
gang
Right.
watching it. We're,
know.
yeah.
So she told us we had to come, and if we had a chance to introduce ourselves and tell you how well you portrayed everyone, because they are a wonderful family, and they really are New Mexico cowboys.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
Serena's been a blessing. The whole Block family's been great.
I mean, we had
Thank you,
we had the great fortune of bringing all of the real characters together with their actor counterparts for a kickoff dinner prior to filming. And it was just it was such a kick. I mean, you're seeing, William Devane with Leonard, and they're just sitting there chatting it up, and it was so much fun because we call him Bill Devane. So when Bill walks in the door, Joanne, the real Joanne, throws her arms up and says, "Hi, honey," and throws her arms around him, and it gives him a great big kiss. I mean, it was just so cute. Hello, Leonard, and they were just great. They couldn't believe the guy we had for their son, Kevin, was just like Kevin. We didn't realize, because we didn't know Kevin that well, we were doing it visually for the most part on some of these characters. And honestly, when the two of them sat down together, they were like twins. And I thought, wow, we really did a good job here.
Now, this is the last audience question, so I always like to say this has to be the best question of the night, no pressure.
Well, I don't know, but who was the actor who played Bob Baffert?
Yeah, his name is Bruce Eckelman, and Bruce I had never known. Most of these actors I didn't know. So, but when we saw him, I think online originally, or saw his headshot, it was uncanny how close he looked to Bob Baffert. And he had the shock white hair, didn't touch his hair, I had to cut it just a tiny bit, and he flipped it the wrong way, so we flipped it the other way. But he even spent time with Bob. As soon as he got the part, he drove down to San Diego, down to Del Mar, introduced himself to Bob.
Of course, he looks just like him while he's doing this. He's got the glasses on and the whole bit.
So Bob took him under his wing, showed him his barn, and said, he knew who I was, Jim's making this film. He said, great, have at it. So he was able to look at his mannerisms and all of that. And the funny thing is, we went to the Breeders' Cup later that year, and Bruce came dressed as Bob Baffert. And as he's walking around the track, I don't know how many hundreds of people came up to him and said, "Bob, you like your horse in the fifth."
Good luck.
And what good luck. And what did he say? "I am just an actor."
No, can you sign this for me, Bob? And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm just, I do him in a movie. I'm an actor. He's sitting there, yeah, okay. Could you just sign this, Bob? He said, I finally started signing them. I didn't know what else to do. These people wouldn't believe me. They kept thinking it was, Bob just goofing around.
This guy could run the town. He should just go out there and act as if.
I agree.
Now, obviously, this is something you guys have been working on for a long time.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you're working on for the future?
Just plans to go camping.
Yeah, we'll go camping, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
this
been a long 4 years.
Yeah, this has been 3.5, nearly
Like
4
almost
years
4.
between sort of concept and raising money and making the film and getting it out there. So it's taken a while. So no, I'm just going to catch my breath.
Yeah, we're looking forward to relaxing and enjoying it, from a different perspective. I want to see this on DVD at home, just relaxing, smiling, laughing, and not having to worry about how many theaters do we open this weekend? We got like 80 right now.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of everyone here, thank you so much for making the picture. Thanks for coming out.